Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Zooty Pickups. Today we are going to be talking about the NikeLab Zoomfly SPs. So before I talk about this shoe in particular, I kind of want to talk about the family of shoes, the Zoomfly family. So there are 4 shoes in the Zoomfly family: the Nike Zoomfly, the Zoomfly SP, this one, the Zoomfly 4%, and the Zoomfly Elites. The really confusing thing is, while the shoes in this family share a lot of design characteristics, like the overall silhouette of the midsole and the fact that there's like a carbon fiber plate in the midsole, they actually use like 2 different types of cushioning. The 2 lower end models, the Zoomfly and the Zoomfly SP, have a traditional Lunarlon midsole, which is nothing new. And then the 2 upper end models, the Zoomfly 4% and the Zoomfly Elite, use a new type of cushioning called Zoom X. Now, Zoom X is supposed to be Nike's answer to Adidas Boost. It's supposed to have great energy return. I personally haven't tried it, so I can't really say anything about it. But right now, the 2 shoes that have Zoom X are extremely limited. The 4%, they only made a very small number of them, and the Zoomfly Elites, I mean, you can't even buy as a regular consumer. You have to be a Nike athlete and get them custom made. They were actually custom made for the Nike Breaking 2 Marathon project. So, where does the Zoomfly SP come in all this? So the story I hear is that the upper on the Zoomfly SP was a prototype that they developed for the Zoomfly 4%, and eventually they moved past this prototype and settled on what you see in the Zoomfly 4% today, which is kind of like this mesh-looking futuristic type upper. However, they liked this prototype so much, they're like, we should release this as, like a NikeLab shoe. So they decided to throw the Lunarlon midsole on it from the Zoomfly and released it. So yeah, I thought it was like a pretty cool story, and I'll talk about it a little later, but you can see the little design details all over this shoe that kind of indicate its origins as a prototype. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's talk about the shoe. So first of all, I want to talk about the features of the shoe, and then I want to talk about the performance of the shoe, because this is a running shoe. I run in it, and I do have some opinions about the shoe in terms of its performance as a running shoe. So I think the most standout thing about this shoe is the upper. The upper has this really cool material. Nike calls it stretch weave, and as you can see, it's this semi-translucent plastic sheet type material, and it kind of has like this weave pattern on it. I don't really know if you can see that on camera, but it's definitely there. And I'm going to put my hand in there, and you can see that you can pretty much see my fingers right through that stretch weave. A lot of people have differing opinions on this. I think it's super cool. It's probably like one of the coolest sneaker designs to come out like this year. Kind of on a side note, I think a lot of Virgil Abloh's like Off-White X Nike collection got a lot of inspiration from this shoe, this transparent material. And you can actually see this transparent stretch weave material being used on a lot of shoes on the 10 collection, not only the Zoomfly. So anyway, sorry to veer off track there. This stretch weave material is super cool. You just have to be careful what socks you wear with this, because you can see right through the shoe. The material itself, while plasticky, however, is a little stretchy, so that first part of the name they did get correct, but I don't think this is actually any sort of weave. It's more or less like a plastic sheet. So anyway, there's a lot of other cool features here on the upper. They have this wave of fuse overlay kind of like going around the front of the shoe, and they also have this giant mega swoosh printed on the lateral side of the shoe, and on the medial side there's like a little baby swoosh too. Very cute. There's also this stitching on the medial side that's covered by a fuse overlay, and that transitions right into this this crazy looking tongue. So the tongue is a asymmetric tongue, and at first you might think this is like a really strange shape for a tongue, but if you think about it, your foot is asymmetrical. Your leg is not a perfect cylinder, and these weird lines here, the weird curves up here, conform perfectly to the shape of your leg and your foot that goes in there. So when you tighten this down, it creates like a seamless fit, and that's pretty awesome when you're running in them. Also, another thing that I have to talk about is the inside of the shoe right here. As you can see, this shoe doesn't have anything like flywire or anything like that. The upper material just folds down in itself and goes under the sock liner to kind of provide that midfoot lockdown. So that's really interesting. On the heel, you have some padding, and it is lined with this like felt type material to enhance comfort. So now moving down to the midsole, there's a curve that goes through the midsole. Initially I thought this curve was like the actual carbon plate, but then I touched it and it was soft. So I realized it was just like painted on. But the carbon plate is in here. I'm assuming it's like very similar looking to this curve, painted curve somewhere in there. But yeah, the curve is just like an aesthetic thing, and it's not actually the carbon plate. So moving on to the outsole, we got some rubber grip on the forefoot strike area to give it more durability. The midfoot is exposed Lunarlon, and on the heel you have a couple more rubber patches for additional durability. So those are kind of like the major design features of this shoe. However, this shoe actually has a lot of like kind of like tiny little cool design details that are hidden all throughout the shoe. So on the medial side of the insole, you can see that it says Nike Running Innovation Concept Zoom Fly Design Version 7.2. And I think this is like a reference to what I was talking about earlier, of this being like a prototype design on the way to the Zoom Fly 4%. Obviously this was design 7.2 and they moved on to whatever future version that became the Zoom Fly 4%, but this was design 7.2. If you flip the inside of the tongue out, you can see that there's further evidence of this shoe being a prototype. It says project initiated August 15th, alternate matte V2, stretch woven plus EMB. I don't know what EMB is, maybe it's this felty material. Version release summer 17. And on here it says trial number, location, time. I guess like, you know, when they're testing out the prototypes, they would like fill this information out. Obviously this shoe is like not a prototype, this is like an actual released shoe, but it was really, I thought it was a really cool little design touch that they left all these initial prototype prints on here, you know, to kind of fully embrace the fact that yes, like this upper was a prototype upper. On the back here you have LCD timer numbers printed to go in line with the theme of racing, and on the heel you have a little thing that says Nike Racing in 3M reflective ink. So definitely a lot of cool design touches all over this shoe. So that being said, let's talk about how it performs as a running shoe, because I mean that's the primary purpose of the shoe, right? Well, first of all, I want to address this carbon plate right here. Like, it makes the shoe really stiff. It does a lot for the energy return, and I was like running in it. I could definitely feel that carbon plate like pushing me forward. However, the first run, I got like serious foot cramps because of the carbon plate. Like, your foot has to do a lot more work. Your foot muscles have to do work to bend this carbon plate. So if your muscles aren't used to that, they're gonna cramp up. The second one, it was better, and the third one, it was pretty much non-existent, but you should definitely be aware that there is a break-in period for these Zoom Fly shoes, and I think most people would probably experience that, because other shoes, like, you know, when you try to fold them, they'll just like fold like into a horseshoe shape, but this, like, as you can see, like, I can't even, like, this is pretty much as far as it goes. That's how rigid the carbon plate is. So when you're running, your foot has to fight that. However, once, you know, you get used to it and you really embrace the bounce, it helps you. I mean, it might be a placebo effect, but I was feeling like way better running in these shoes versus like my other running shoes. Like, I mean, I run the same route every time I run, so I know by a certain point how I feel. And running in these shoes, like when I was like hitting those points, I realized like I was feeling better. I mean, I was feeling less tired. So I don't know, maybe it was in my mind, but it definitely felt like I was getting some sort of energy back anyway. Another thing I want to talk about is this thick midsole. This means you're sitting pretty high up on the shoe, meaning that you're a little less stable, and this might lead to some ankle injuries. When I run, I usually run on straight city streets that are flat pavement, so it didn't really affect me all too much. But if your running takes you through a lot of windy areas, a lot of sharp turns and uneven terrain, I could definitely see this thick midsole being a problem, and you might hurt your ankles running in this shoe. This shoe also is a neutral shoe, so there's no stability support. Like if you're over pronator or under pronator, you're definitely gonna have to mind your gait, so you're not putting too much weight on either side of your foot. So this is kind of like a manual transmission versus like automatic transmission. Like you have to be mindful of every step that you take. So let's move on to the upper. The consensus for this shoe is that this shoe fits too small, and a lot of people are going up a size. But I think there is a reason this shoe fits really small, and it's totally intentional. So usually shoes have a lot of technical features to help with lockdown, because that's one of the most important things when it comes to running shoes. You don't want your foot moving around in the shoe. That's going to give you blisters when you run long distances. However, this shoe, it doesn't have any sort of technical features to help with lockdown. There's no heel counter, there's no fly wire, there's no prime knit or fly knit, there's no internal fuse overlays. Like it doesn't have anything. All it has is this stretch weave upper and some like pieces of felt on the inside. That's it. So they were trying to be very minimalistic, trying to use as least materials as possible, as least features as possible, and kind of make a super well-fitting lockdown shoe. And this is what you have. So the only way they could really do that was to use this material, which provides a lot of compression and not that much give, essentially way less give than Flyknit, and kind of like make the shoe fit really tight. That way when you're wearing it for runs, like it literally feels like a part of your foot. It does feel a little tight at first, but it eventually does kind of like conform to the shape of your foot, because this plastic does stretch a little bit. I actually got another pair because I like this shoe so much, and I gotta say, like, this pair that I've been running in for a couple of weeks feels more roomy than the new pair that I got. So, you know, that it does expand after a while. But that being said, the design philosophy of this shoe, this upper anyway, was to have an upper with as least features as possible, the lightest upper as possible, while maintaining that stable foot lockdown. And I think they did a good job. It's pretty comfortable when I run. That being said, however, if you're wearing this casually, you know, wearing this to school or wearing this to work, like if you have your foot in this for like 6+ hours, that compression, it's gonna start to hurt your foot a little bit if you don't size up. So if you're just purely wearing this for casual purposes, yes, I do recommend that you size up. If you're wearing this to race in, to run in, you should go true to size. So I got these true to size to run in, but does that make them like unwearable as casual shoes? Like no, like they're a little uncomfortable, but they're definitely still doable as casual shoes. But if you want super comfortable shoes, you should definitely go one size up. And that's what these shoes are. They're super comfortable. The midsole, the Lunarlon midsole, look how much Lunarlon you have. They're very comparable to any like Adidas Boost shoe in my opinion. And with this carbon plate, when you're running in it, it's like a pure joy. I really wish I could get my hands on a pair of the Zoom Fly 4%, but those are totally sold out at the moment. And honestly, as a casual shoe / running shoe, this fits the bill way better. Because I think the Zoom Fly 4%, you know, they look a little too techy for me to just wear around. But the Zoom Fly SPs are perfect because they look good and they're also functional running shoes as well. So yeah, I know there's a couple more releases of this shoe coming out. So if you were in the market for some Zoom Fly SPs for running shoes, I hope this video helped, because you know this was kind of like a topic I was interested in before buying these shoes. Like, are they actually good running shoes? But I couldn't really find any videos of like the performance of these shoes anywhere. So yeah, I'm gonna throw these shoes on foot, and I'm gonna put on the wildest socks I have, by the way, so you guys can see how translucent this shoe is. And yeah, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.